We have last year's Galaxy Book Pro 360 on the left, this year's Galaxy Book2 Pro 360 on the right. As you can see here by the screenshots, we're looking at a price now for about $1,000 for last year's model versus $1,549 for the latest model. In this video, we look to answer the question, is the new Galaxy Book2 Pro 360 actually worth the additional $550 over last year's model? Hi guys, my name is Brian Rader and this is Rader Tech. Thank you so much for swinging by. All right, first up, let's talk about the similarities between the machines, because there is quite a few. They both have the same form factor, the same screen, right? So we have a 1920 by 1080p 60 hertz panel, with the newer model being a little bit brighter. We'll talk about that soon. We have the same keyboard, same trackpad, same ports and I/O. Both have the latest features put out by Samsung, and what I'm referring to is features like multi-control. You can now control your Tab S8 with both models. It's not just a feature reserved for the Galaxy Book2 lineup. It's on both, and I did play around with it a little bit on last year's model today, and it works fine. Works exactly the same. We also have the same RAM and storage for both models. So on the surface, they're very much the same. Like I said, same keyboard, same trackpad, same everything. You're looking at them in front of you. They both come with the same S Pen. Very similar machines. And when you consider the price difference, that's definitely something to consider. Let's go ahead and talk about the differences real quick. The biggest difference between these two is Intel 11th Gen versus Intel 12th Gen. So with Alder Lake, we are getting a much higher multi-threaded performance gains as opposed to the Tiger Lake implementation of 11th Gen. So for those of you that are doing larger type tasks, right? Video editing, animation, working with Blender, working with Adobe products, it's something to keep in mind. The upgrade to 12th Gen is pretty substantial for use cases like that. Also, if you're into light gaming, you're going to get a higher FPS on most of your titles, but not much because they're both integrated graphics. We have DDR4 RAM versus DDR5, so you're going to have a little bit higher throughput with the newer model. PCI Gen 3 on last year's model versus PCI Gen 4 on the newest model. This is for your SSD storage. However, do keep in mind though that this PCI Gen 4 slot is just that. It's a slot. The SSD that's installed with it is a PCI Gen 3. So if you want to get that updated speed, you are going to have to pony up for an upgrade on the internal SSD. Another key difference is on last year's model, we're talking about the 15.6-inch variants here, is that you have an extra 2280 SSD slot, whereas opposed to the newer Galaxy Book2 Pro 360, the 15.6-inch variant, you have an extra 2230 sized SSD. So for those of you looking to upgrade, you're going to have a lot more options on last year's model as opposed to what's available in the 2230 size of this year's model. 4-watt speakers versus 5-watt speakers. On Samsung's website, they show this as being 1.5. It's not true though. They're 4 watts. These are 5 watts. I'll go ahead and do a quick sound comparison here for you so you can hear the difference for yourself. Let's go ahead and crank it up. Last year's 360. All right, let's go ahead and crank up this year's Galaxy Book2 Pro 360. Definitely louder, without question. But the overall sound stage and the overall width and just the way the sound is itself, very similar between both models. Another key difference between last year's model and this year's model is a screen brightness. All right, so let's go ahead and compare them right here, and then we'll also take a look at some outdoor footage. Full brightness on last year's Galaxy Book Pro 360. Full brightness on this year's Galaxy Book2 Pro 360. Pay close attention to the greens here, like in this corner. It's a little brighter in this area. I mean, yeah, it's brighter. 33% brighter? I don't know. I'll let you guys be the judge of that. I personally don't think so. Keep in mind, I have the Intel graphics settings set to be the same default brightness for each of these, so there's no differences behind the scenes. I mean, it looks a little brighter, but sitting here in person, I gotta be honest with you guys, if I didn't know from a spec sheet that there was a 33% difference, I would never guess it. I would say maybe closer to 10%. Let's go ahead and take a look at some outdoor footage now real quick so you can see what the visibility will be like outdoors for both machines. Last year's Galaxy Book Pro 360 is on the left and this year's model is on the right. A little bit of a difference. I don't really see that much though. Another small difference between both models is that the S Pen performance is a little bit better on the newer model, especially when using Samsung Notes. Let me throw up some footage from a previous video. I'll show you what I mean. Here we're taking a look at last year's Galaxy Book Pro 360. All right, and now we're going to take a look at this year's Galaxy Book2 Pro 360. You see that the ink is keeping up with the pen a lot better. Not a lot better, but a little better. You know, it's noticeable, but it's really only noticeable when you're doing this slow motion footage. And another difference between them are the color options. So besides the normal bronze and silver type offerings, we had Mystic Navy last year. And this year we have Mystic Graphite and Burgundy. You know, of these two, of this Mystic Navy here to the left and the Graphite, I probably prefer this Graphite color just a little bit more in person, but they both look fantastic. They're both kind of fingerprint magnets. Last year's model a little bit more so. Not important to me, but it may be important to you. Another small difference between last year's model and this year's is we're going from Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 6E. Another key difference as well, this was never a big issue for me, but there's a lot of complaints on Reddit about it, is the actual strength of the chassis. We talked about this in a previous video, but if we pick up last year's model, I can click the trackpad from underneath. So this might, you see what it's doing? It was moving the YouTube video around, so it actually is registering clicks. Just watch the video a little bit more. You see it went to the pause. Now it started again. So you will get accidental clicks with last year's model if you use a lot of force while sitting in your lap. Doesn't happen to me personally, but there are plenty of people that have reported that it has happened to them. On the newer model, however, it's not happening. They've reinforced the deck quite a bit. So that is definitely something to consider. But really though, the main difference between both these machines, honestly, is the chipset. Going from 11th gen Tiger Lake to 12th gen Alder Lake is probably the biggest improvement between these both machines. The screens are beautiful on both. The audio is great on both once you set up Dolby Atmos. The typing experience is fantastic. They both have the same features. You know, they'll have backlit keys, the same Samsung apps and settings. The ecosystem is the same. You're getting the same functionality with both machines. It really comes down to your use case of whether or not you're a power, like demanding type user, in which case it might behoove you to go ahead and just reach for the newer model. But here's my take on it, guys. Just being realistic here. You know, put all the YouTube channel stuff to the side and all that. If you can get this machine for $1,000, which I'm seeing it all day long, eBay, even Best Buy's having some deals, compared to the $1,549 for this machine, it was my money if I didn't have this channel. Honestly, that one right there, I would just go with last year's model. I'm just keeping it real. But however, you're going to see this go on sale quite a bit. It's going to come down to like $12.99, maybe $13.29, something like that. If you can get the newer model at a sale price, which we'll see here in a couple months, I'm sure of it. You know, it's been out for over a month now. We'll see it start to go down. We'll see a couple of these sales here and there. Then I would definitely consider the newer one. I mean, there's quite a few little upgrades that we talked about, and they do add up to be a little bit nicer package all in all. And then I think it is worth that extra $200 to $300. But for the extra $550 for the regular retail price, compared to the $1,000 that you're able to get this, and considering you're finding a lot of gently used options in the $700 to $800 range, last year's model's great. It really is. It served me very well this past year. I've had no real issues with it. And as far as just picking one up for everyday use, email, surfing the web, you know, working with Microsoft Office documents, doing some light coding, doing some light video editing, they're both great machines. No quibbles with either one of them. They both work fantastic. So guys, if you're in the market for a new Samsung laptop, and considering times are tough for a lot of us right now, and the economic instabilities going on in the world with all the inflation that we're dealing with, I think last year's Galaxy Book Pro 360 is a great option. All right guys, just my take on both machines. They're both great, but again, you can save some big money with going last year's model. As always, thanks for watching.